If you are currently stuck below 2000 rating, then I might be able to help you with this video lesson. I will be playing a chess game against France's chessbot, and I will be trying to explain something which I guess some of you probably lack. And that is a very decent understanding of strategy and positional play in chess. So yesterday I had a coaching call with a student of mine, and after analyzing some of his games, I realized that he was quite good at tactics and calculation. He had been obsessing a little bit about openings, but he lacked some positional and strategic understanding. And that is why I'm kind of making this video, because I think many of you will struggle with the same thing. I am playing the French defense here, not that the opening matters too much, it's more so about the middle game plan. I'm gonna play the Blackburn defense, which is my favorite variation of the French. And if they take my knight, I basically just got a replacement knight, plus we were also able to eliminate the very strong e4 pawn. But as I said, it doesn't matter too much. This is going to be a middle game strategy lesson. So what I want to try and teach you is how to use strategy and positional play in your games, and also how to formulate middle game plans. First, opening. We need to continue with the opening. I will keep things very simple for the opening. I'm not going to play anything complicated. I will put my bishop here and I will castle. I don't even really mind what my opponent is doing. All right. And now we are somewhat transitioning from the opening to the early middle game, since, well, we have already castled, but we still have some pieces that we need to develop. Especially here, this light squared bishop, very common in the French, is that this bishop is stuck, and your opening, it might be a different piece that needs a little bit more attention. Also, this knight, which was very well placed in the beginning, so that I could play this tactic with the knight to f6, right now it's maybe a little bit passive. So we have to try and formulate a plan. How can I improve this bishop? Basically, that is our biggest concern. It's not really going to go anywhere immediately right here. I mean, yeah, it's quite stuck on this diagonal, but there is a pretty nice diagonal here I could be using, which also attacks the enemy king side. To do that, I need to play pawn to b6. Always analyze, of course, a little bit before you play, especially a pawn push always creates some weaknesses here. For example, this is a little bit weak, but as we also have our bishop present, there's not really any problem. So we're going to play this, and we have a very simple plan. We want to put the bishop here and attack this knight. So now really is the moment that we are somewhat done with our opening. We are at move 10, I can see. So that's about it. It's time to go for the middle game now. So how can we find a good middle game plan in this position? We are going to take a look at a couple of things. The first one is diagonals. I'm going to take a look at the diagonals for my bishops. And I can currently see that in that aspect of chess, I'm already doing quite well. This bishop is on a quite nice diagonal. There are no pawns cluttered here. For example, a quite bad move would be playing something like pawn to c6. I would be stopping my own diagonal. This bishop also doing fine. So, all right, I don't have to worry about diagonals for now. The next thing is files. Are there any files which are semi-open, as this one is, or could be opened up in the future? And if I look at that, there are basically three files which are interesting for middle game planning. Those are these three files: E file, D file, and C file. One of them is already semi-open, which is this D file. We are attacking this pawn indirectly with the queen. This or this could potentially lead to the opening up of a file. This is quite unlikely, to be honest, because, well, there are already three pieces defending this. I do have one piece defending this. I might be able to try and maneuver with something like bishop here, rook here, and then maybe pushing. But white can also stop me by just blocking my pawn with a knight. So I already eliminated. This is not really a diagonal we are going to use. Not really a file we are going to use. Excuse me. So this is going to be the most interesting for us. Which one are we going to use exactly? Well, we already have some pressure here. It might be interesting if we could open up this diagonal as well. So an interesting move would be to either play rook to c8 so that we can push this pawn, or we could also consider pushing the pawn straight away. That's also fine. We do have to be a little bit careful. Our opponent is targeting this weak square with two pieces, but yeah, there's not really anything immediate they can do here. We could in some lines play something like knight here, attack the bishop, and also protect it. But just to be safe, we are just going to move the rook first. So I'm already thinking about how can I use this open file. And it's funny that my opponent actually just goes for this straight away. This is a move I have expected. Now, of course, this is also under attack, but it's not any problem since we can play knight to d5 first, attack the bishop probably has to move, and then we just play a6. So I calculated this before I made the move. Calculation is, of course, very important. This just, kicks away the enemy pieces and we are fine. White is trying to make things complicated instead of just retreating the knight, which would immediately give us a very good position. Let me just show you, for example, if they move now, we can create this, which is a strategic weakness, doubled pawns, and we already have a rook on this file. So that would be strategically completely losing for my opponent. They are trying to make things complicated here by going for this trade. If we take the knight, they have to take this knight, and then we can improve our bishop. And now we are the ones here with a very good diagonals for the bishop, plus we temporarily have an extra pawn, but yeah, it's probably just gonna be captured here anyways. So that's an interesting moment for us. Do we want to play for this or not? Or maybe we want to move the bishop. I think maybe we want to move the knight. I think both of those options can be considered. It's just a bit of calculation, but I do think this is the most interesting one because it helps us to centralize one of our pieces. Even if they take here, we can probably play c6, win a little bit of time, and then we can still try to go for our plan. So that is the variation I will be going for. They take here. Why am I not taking with the pawn? Well, we are opening up a file, but we are also closing this file. So that's not really what I want. So I'm going to take this with my bishop. They take here. There are multiple things you can do. You can move your knight, but I'm just going to play this. It's a little bit of a space gaining move, and it also fortifies our position here. All right, so we have basically been planning for the middle game. We have been thinking about our bishop's diagonals, which are still fine. We have been thinking about open files. We also, of course, have to think which are the best squares for our knight. So right here, two plans really scream at me, and that is one plan is to play c5, because this basically continues what we have already started. We're trying to open up this rook, but we can also wait a little bit because this structure in and by itself, it's not so bad. The second thing that really bothers me is this knight. This knight is basically not doing anything, and I can just improve it by going here and also grabbing a little bit more space. Which one is the best? Honestly, I would personally always improve my pieces a little bit before I decide to make pawn moves, because pawn moves are always very committal. Once you play them, you cannot choose to put the pawn back. If you move a knight, you can always move it again. My opponent attacking my knight, not really any problem. If they trade, we just got a bishop on the good diagonal. So now we can continue with our plan, which is pushing here to create this open file. Interesting moment again. They capture, so we can choose how we want to recapture. We can take with the pawn, which would be the most terrible move. We could take with the bishop, or we could take with the rook. Now, a very good question. What is the best recapture? Well, this is the most terrible in my opinion, because one, this is an isolated pawn. This is a weakness that we have in our camp. If we put it here, we basically make it easier for our opponent to start attacking our weakness. If we take with the bishop, at least they are somewhat working together. They are connected and they are also in an attacking position. The thing I don't like is that I actually felt like my bishop was doing fine here, also protecting my knight. Plus, this is somewhat just blocking our rook from his open file. So we are trying to improve our rook. That was the middle game strategy. And now we mess it up ourselves. So I'm going to play rook c5. It looks a bit strange, but I think it's probably the best move here because we activate the rook. Now we have a rook on this open file. We might even be able to double up and some variation. My opponent is also, of course, trying to improve their rook, but it's not really doing much here. So we do need to find a middle game plan. I'm thinking a little bit what would be a good plan here. Again, I'm just going over my pieces. Are my bishops doing fine? I have to be honest, right now this dark squared bishop is a little bit passive, a little bit defensive, but I mean the rook is flexible. Once it moves, we have a great bishop again. Plus, I do like this being a defender, so that I can always move my queen if I want. Not here, but somewhere else. This bishop, still doing fine. This knight could be improved. Maybe the knight could potentially go to d5. That would be a wonderful square for the knight. Because usually, as you can move your knight up the board and you move it closer into your enemy's position, it's going to improve in strength. Especially a square like this, because there are no pawns that can attack it. So that would be a very good square for the knight. My queen is also somewhat out of the game right now. It was at one point doing a job, now it's blocked. So there are some things we can think about. We can move the queen, but I'm not 100% sure. Maybe this, maybe here on this file, targeting this weakness, but I don't really see a big benefit. The second one, but might seem counterintuitive, is just moving back this bishop. We just move back the bishop, and I'm just going to make a random move for our opponent. Apparently a very bad move. The eval bar, it doesn't agree. And I can already see why, because, well, of course, we would be doubling up here. So I think bishop here is an interesting move. The bishop is still on the best diagonal, and it opens up the queen. It opens up a sideways, a lateral attack from the rook, and it opens up a square for our knight. So the bishop was actually hindering our other pieces. So I'm going to play this. And now they move the queen, which is strange, because the queen was defending this knight. So that gives us the opportunity to create what is known as doubled pawns. And especially in the endgame, this is going to be a huge weakness. This can be okay if there are still pawns here and they are protecting the center, but this to me looks like a huge weakness. So we are going to trade away and we are going to take this. Now this d5 square is opened up. Putting a knight here, even though it is playable, feels a bit dangerous. And I hope you can agree, since these two bishops are already attacking our position, maybe we don't want to remove one of our defenders. Putting the rook here looks way more interesting. We are pinning this bishop to the queen, and we also have double power. We have the queen and rook powered up. So you can see that if we just use these simple strategic and positional elements, all of a sudden we can get a quite good position. And this is already quite nice for us. But of course, we need to keep going. You always need to make a plan. Whenever you make a plan, your opponent is going to make a move, and then you just need to figure out a new plan. This is not the easiest position to figure a new plan out, because rook and queen, I'm going to say those pieces are fine. We are not going to touch this. This is perfect. The knight, it's a little bit passive, We can always move it, but it cannot go here. We might be able to go here, but we are also opening up our opponent's attack. Bishop, up to this point, has been very passive, a defensive role. We can always choose to move it, for example, here, and improve it a little bit, because if they take this, we can always take with the queen, so that looks fine. So right now I really have my eyes on how can I improve my bishop. I'm also looking at this structure. This is very weak. These are very weak pawns, so if we could potentially attack these, that would be very interesting. Especially this one. If we could somehow get our queen there, that would be very nice. So I think I am just going to go for this move, bishop to c5. We are targeting this pawn, improving our bishop, and this would be very terrible by black. Our queen would suddenly be activated. White really trying to start the attack here. Trying to basically put everything here. We have to be a little bit careful, because let's just say I'm just going to make a random move. At some point, our opponent might always capture here, this, and then they can grab a free pawn. So we have to be a little bit defensive here. That's the main concern, our king safety. I don't have to think about anything else. We have to think a little bit about our king safety. H6 solves some of those problems, since the pawn is gone, and even if they trade, that's fine. So that looks like a move we could play, but I'm always very careful with pawn moves, because pawn moves always create weaknesses. G6, I don't like this move. We are removing a defender from the knight. Maybe our opponent will be able to start an attack with these pawns as well. There might be a way we can ignore this as well. Yeah, this doesn't even work, because they would still be winning the pawn. So we might need to make a defensive move here. We might need to make this move pawn to h6. Our opponent is proposing some trades. So they are playing here bishop to c4. So we have to move the rook. There's not much choice. I can grab his rook, but then he's going to win some time. He's going to attack my queen, and I have to move the queen again, which I don't really like. I don't like wasting time. I can also move my rook. Not really many options. For example, here. If he takes, I take, and we still get this position. Or I have to take with the knight. My conclusion doesn't really matter. We are just going to trade, and then we are going to find a better square for the queen, which is going to be queen e7. Still guarding the knight, and everything is fine. My opponent is playing very strong, but of course it's a 2300 rated bot. But you can see that we are actually in a better position, because this is a very bad structure from white, and all we have to do is we have to keep playing, because eventually we will have the best structure. We might have a winning endgame, or we might be able to do something. I hope you can already start using this thinking system as well. Is this bishop okay? All right. This queen is fine. This rook might be improved, but I don't really see any good way. So my biggest focus is right now improving this knight. And there might be a way where we can put this knight on this beautiful outpost square. And I know it looks like they can take this and take this with the queen. But I'm not so sure if this actually works, because this looks a little bit fishy for white. They can be attacked here. They have to move the king. But at the same time, I think if they go here, there's not really any clear follow-up. So it looks interesting, but I'm not 100% sure about this move. So we have to find a way to improve. The knight cannot really improve. The bishop cannot really improve. The queen cannot really improve. We might be able to do something with the rook. For example, rook here. Now we might have some tricks in the future as well, if we can crash the bishop and then also attack with the rook. So I'm going to play this. This is my choice here. And now we actually have our trick. I thought this bot was going to see it, but they didn't see my trick, which is just to take here. That is why I put the bishop there, and then I can take with my rook. I'm wondering if there is something else they can play. They can take with the king, but yeah, looks fine. We have our opponent who is scrambling. This is very common whenever you play chess. As long as you keep playing good moves, as long as you keep thinking, keep calculating, keep improving your position, your opponent will eventually collapse. And here Francis is collapsing, giving me a free pawn, and this move also seems a little bit off. I have to move my queen. I think I'm gonna go to d7. I mean, I'm protected and also attacking this bishop, so looks fine. Now we have to move our rook, but I can just team up with these two pieces. And they move. Right now I think we have a pretty clear advantage that we can convert into the endgame. We just have an extra pawn, and we also have a better structure because we have 2 pawn islands. My opponent has 3 pawn islands. So this endgame will always be better for black. So if we just take, maybe even straight away activate the rook, put the knight here, it's going to be a good endgame. This is maybe going to turn into an endgame lesson. So we're going to trade, activate the rook. Activating a rook is very important in the endgame. My opponent is even giving me another pawn. Yes, I know we're also going to get a little bit of a damaged structure if they take, which they don't, but if they take here, we are going to damage the structure, but we are already up so much material, it doesn't matter. If they don't take, I will take my time to improve the knight. You can see this is a monster knight here in the center of the board, protected by a pawn. Looking at all those squares, it's an incredible piece. And as long as I keep everything on the light squares, this bishop and rook combo actually can't do much. This is under attack, but I can even activate my king and just defend it. And now we should just have a simple winning position. I think we might even be able to pick up this pawn. Probably attacking it from the back, that's usually the best plan. Even if they try to defend it, now the rook is pretty much stuck. So attacking pawns from the back, always a good plan. I think he's gonna defend it, yep. Funny thing is also, if I push this and he takes it, I win his rook. But we cannot play hope chess, they can also just push the pawn. But everything looks fine. Now we have to see if we can find a way to improve. I'm not going to touch this. I'm not going to touch my rook. This is a little bit of a trick. I'm not going to play it straight away. What can I do? Maybe a small move, just a little bit of improvement. And now it's white to move, and white plays this. And we might even have a trick here. I think we can even sacrifice this pawn and see if we can just win this with the rook. And this king is also somewhat getting stuck here in the corner. This trade is very good for us because that pawn was the only dangerous thing in the position. Now that this is gone, this is pure endgame class and we are up 2 pawns, so this should be a winning. How do we win this exactly? Well, we can either start pushing our pawn or we can try to wave a mating net around the enemy king. But I don't really see any opportunity to go for a mating net. We might just need to push pawns. Of course, I'm going to keep this one on e6 forever. Or at least for now, because it is supporting me. I might just be able to keep pushing. This is protected, and we can even just block with the knight, and now we have this pawn, and this can potentially promote. All we have to do is move the rook, Attack the bishop. If they take, which they could do, we can pin. I'm gonna show this. I calculated that quickly, didn't really talk about it, but this wins, of course. Yeah, something like this, and then knight h5. So that doesn't work. What did they play? They played the bishop here. All right, that's just one of the most simple plans. We are up a pawn, so we're gonna keep pushing it. This is fine. We could also take this with the king, doesn't really matter. We are gonna lose the pawn, but again, doesn't matter. And we can take this. And I think this is a good moment to end the lesson. We just have 2 extra pawns. This should be a very easy endgame. They are even connected. We can push these and shield our king from checks. So I hope this lesson will help you to figure out middle game plans. Keep in mind what we looked at. Look for diagonals you can use, how to improve your knight, how to improve your rooks. Maybe there are weaknesses you can attack. Try to use this in your own games and you will really see an improvement in your middle game strategy. That's it. As always, I'll see you in the next one. Bye.